Welcome everyone to this live. My name is Clarity and I'm very excited to be sharing today on the topic of the energetics of intimacy. I have a lot to share about this topic, but I'm going to condense it into a journey of connecting with another person while being aware of the energy and the energetic work that is happening when we do so. And through this journey, hopefully you'll learn a lot of things about what a tantric practice can be. First, I want to introduce myself. I am Clarity. I'll be teaching at the Toronto Tantra Festival. I'll be teaching a Kali Yoga class, which is a devotional practice to the Hindu goddess Kali, and I'll be teaching Kashmirian tantric massage as well. I'm really excited. So this topic came for me because I feel like there's a lot I need to clarify exactly what happens when we engage with someone else. And I've went through a lot of experiences to understand that for myself. And for me, this journey very much begins with the individual itself. So before you connect with another person, you really want to do a lot of practices to balance your own energy, to make sure that you're not looking to compensate for a lack of self-love, a lack of wholeness in your being. And Tantra offers this very simple and yet somewhat confusing model, which is the feminine and masculine, for us to understand how to do that and to practice this inner wholeness, this inner integrity with ourselves. So I wanted to touch a little bit on that before we talk about intimacy with another, because this is where Tantra really begins. And for me to think of the energy is very much what Tantra is about, because Tantra is the union of the feminine, which is the energy, the life force within us. It can also be seen as matter and the void, and it can be seen in many ways, but mostly this Shakti energy. And the masculine is the consciousness. So when we become aware of where energy is, that is Tantra. That is when we are bridging the feminine and masculine together and creating healing in the present moment. And so we can start to do that for ourselves by connecting and integrating our feminine and masculine together. So that would look like doing some spiritual practices in order to receive guidance, which will be a feminine practice. And that could look like connecting with our emotions, connecting with certain plant medicine, going into meditation, going into ecstatic states, and then bringing this back into our life and applying what we've found and receiving this guidance and following the guidance with actions, with intentional steps. And that will be the masculine phase. So we're bridging the feminine insights of this energy, this ecstasy, this insights, this connection to spirit into the physical world. And that is finding integrity in ourselves, in our whole being. And that, as they say in Tantra, that will nourish you, that will fulfill you, that will create an energetic circuit within yourself that is whole. And you won't need to look for that energy or for that sustenance outside of yourself. You won't look for the feminine insight, inspiration, connection to spirit outside of yourself, and you won't look for that masculine, grounded energy, practical, goal-oriented discipline energy outside of yourself. You'll have both within. So I hope this helps, because there's a lot of talk about feminine and masculine nowadays, and I truly believe that everyone needs to cultivate both in order to come from a good place when we're connecting with anybody, whether it's a romantic relationship or intimate relationship. So this is the first step, where we're checking in with ourselves, we're being present with ourselves, we're creating this inner integrity. And then what Tantra helps us with too is to listen from that place of integrity, listen to the energy with our presence, which is the masculine consciousness, listening to that energy. Where is it moving? And just witnessing. And when we're doing that, perhaps this energy will move towards an individual to connect with a person. But again, we're not desperately looking to fulfill ourselves with that person. We're simply arriving and observing where the energy wants to move. Perhaps in just an eye gazing, perhaps in just a conversation with that person. And while we're engaging with that person, we're staying whole in ourselves with our inner wholeness, our seat of power, and our inner center. And so we're not jumping into intimacy. We're first arriving, pausing, and in yoga, we have the beautiful practice of namaste, which means the divine in me honors the divine in you. So that's a place where you want to connect. It's a beautiful moment to eye gaze with a person. And breath is really what is going to allow us to stay present and to stay connected with ourselves and witnessing the other and witnessing the energy. And perhaps when we're in that state of witnessing, there's going to be a moment where it just feels right to engage in touch. And so touch can be very powerful in Tantra. Actually, there's the practice of Shaktipat, which is a transmission of energy from one person to another just through touch. Usually it's from a guru to a disciple. And just by one touch, one anointing, there's a huge transmission of energy, of Shakti, that can actually awaken the Kundalini of a person. So touch is not something to be taken lightly. It's something, it's already an exchange of energy between two people. And only through presence and awareness and patience, we can allow this touch to be, again, fully in integrity with the present moment, with our truth, and come from the right place for that touch to be healing instead of being graspy. And that graspiness could be the opposite of healing. In fact, it could create a lot of harm. So you definitely want to make sure you're coming from a good place. And for that, you want to not be goal-oriented. You want to be fully present and just allowing and witnessing the energy moving. And when we do that, it's basically being intuitive. So you're reading the other person, you're reading the present moment in order to know what is right. And this is very different from what a lot of other Tantra teachers teach, to communicate, to mostly communicate, which can be a very heady process, and yet it's very powerful to establish a container, etc. But here, with what I am sharing with you, it's a different perspective, where we're actually coming out of the head into the body to be able to know even without words. So it's quite an advanced practice, but for me, this is what really Tantra is, because Tantra cannot be practiced in the mind. It is not logical. It cannot be practiced with words. It can only be experienced. So once we engage in touch, and this is the journey, right? First we arrive, there's the eye gaze, there's the acknowledgement. First we fill our cup, and then there's the arrival, the connection, just feeling the other person's energy, and then perhaps the touch. And then if through the touch, the energy builds up and it just feels right, and it's very life-giving and joyful, and yet still there's a lot of presence remaining and attention and awareness, And then perhaps it's time for the building up phase. So we start to build up energy in the body. And this happens again with breath, with movement. There's also more passion in this phase. And there's also sound. And sound is very key because sound is what will allow the energy to move up in the body from the genitals up through all of the chakras and diffuse throughout the whole body. So I always say to my students to really open the voice, really open, not only through breath, but through sound. And sound will also help the other person to read you. So again, we're leaving the words in this practice of Tantra that I'm offering you today through the awareness of energetics. And we're moving into energy through sound and this other sort of intelligence that we all have that is more primal, to read another person's sound and to move with the sound and what they're communicating through the sound, and allow the sound to move us and to move the energy up in our body. At this phase of connection and intimacy, the building up of energy, we naturally move out of being balanced feminine, masculine individuals into a polar energy. So one person will take the role of the feminine energy, and that doesn't matter sex or gender, and the other person will become a masculine polarity. And this happens naturally. It's not something, I mean, you can talk about it beforehand if you want to play with that, but it's something that happens very naturally. Because at this stage, what will happen is that energy will start to move in between, not only in your inner circuit, but will move through you into the other person, and you'll receive energy from them. So you're creating a circuit with that other person. A beautiful teacher of mine, Diana Richardson, who wrote the book The Heart of Tantric Sex, and also other books that I highly recommend. She says that we have an electromagnetic rod in between our heart and our genitals. And what happens in this phase is that the feminine, not only female, but the feminine, well, actually, she believes that it's the woman, but I think that any feminine polarity, whether they're male or female, or no matter what their sex or gender is, that feminine polarity, that person that embodies the feminine polarity will have a positive pull at the heart, which is the expression of the breast in the female body, and a negative pull in the genitals. So they will receive energy from their genitals and send it out through their heart. And the other person, that masculine polarity, will be receiving this love, this energy, this Shakti into their heart, and will send it out through their genital. And so this is the circuit that is being created when we start to engage with this love, with this passion, and really connect with another. And this is actually what will really allow us to have an orgasm, is how connected you are between your heart and your genitals. And you want to move this energy again with breath, with movement. Diana Richardson recommends to massage or touch or stimulate the breast of the woman to open this circuit of energy and to create that electromagnetic rod between their heart and their yoni, their genitals, female genitals, which will open once we stimulate the breast. So this is a really important phase in order to, you can stop here. Of course, you can stop at any point if you're present and you're reading the energy and it just suddenly comes to a closure. This is a beautiful tantric practice. This is a beautiful way to honor the other and to not push any agenda on them, which is so important. But if we're wanting to, or not wanting, if there's a next phase that comes where we're we're engaging even deeper in intimacy and maybe having penetration, then you definitely want to spend time there and just building up energy through touch, through movement, through breath, through sounds, in order for especially the female yoni to open like a flower, which will become this delicious magnetic portal that will allow even more energy to move between the two persons. However, we can experience so much pleasure and so much orgasms without penetration. So when we're really present with the other person, when we develop this sensitivity to read the energy and be fully one with our intuition and follow this intuition with ourselves and with another, there is this huge potential to transform intimacy to become more energetic, because the truth is that orgasms do not happen on the physical level, they happen on an energetic level. Orgasm is not, you cannot apply any technique to achieve orgasm, or if you do, if it's only physical, then you will have a kind of orgasm that is more depleting. So you definitely want to shift your awareness from the physicality and the mind and the goals and logical to being in the body, to being present, and to just allow instead of trying, which will move the energy throughout the whole body. And so people can experience many different kinds of orgasms, and these will depend on where the energy is moving through the body. And I find that you can direct the energy, but I personally prefer to just allow it to move where it wants to be. So you can have an orgasm, obviously at the root. I'm not going to go into details, but at the sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown. You can have a full body orgasm, which for me is more that crown chakra holistic experience. And yeah, and these are totally achievable if you cultivate your own feminine and masculine energy and you're present with a person. In fact, you can have an orgasm simultaneously with the other person if you're just fully present with the energy instead of the physicality of the experience. So let me see. So that phase, the orgasm, can be very shamanic, because at this phase of intimacy, you're actually, all of your chakras are open and you're fully connected to the divine. So a lot of things can happen, especially for the person who embodies the feminine polarity. They're receiving a lot of energy, cosmic energy, right? Like that circuit is creating a portal for a lot of codes, a lot of downloads. Sometimes vision can come through, sometimes shamanic experiences can happen for that feminine polarity, that person that embodies the feminine polarity, and the masculine polarity, that person who embodies the masculine polarity, will be holding space for all of that, but yet still receiving a lot as well. It's just a different kind of experience. The feminine polarity will be very transcendental, and the masculine will be more in control, more present, and holding space for that cosmic connection and that healing to happen. After orgasm, there's a very important phase, which is integration phase. And this is really interesting, because what actually happens during the integration phase is that polarities will switch. So the person who is playing the masculine polarity will become feminine and actually receiving so much healing, energy, codes, activation from the other person, who will be sending them out to them. In the Magdalene manuscript by Tom Kenyon and Judith, I can't remember her last name, Judith Sion, they talk about how this phase of integration after orgasm is a moment where the masculine, the person who embodies the masculine polarity, again, they believe that it's more like the male. But you can choose to look at it different ways. I look at it more energetically. So that person who suddenly switches from masculine to feminine in that integration phase is a time for them to actually expand their energetic body, which they call the Ka body, the astral body. So it's a very spiritual process that will allow them to, as I mentioned, receive all these codes, but also expand their spiritual potential to travel into different astral planes. I call also this body the bliss body. In yoga, we have Ananda Maya Kosha, which is there's many bodies, many koshas in Tantra and in yoga. And Ananda Maya Kosha is the bliss body, which you definitely want to expand, because this is the energetic body where you receive pleasure, but also abundance. And so this is a beautiful time for this spiritual practice to expand your energy body. And the person who is in feminine polarity and who now switches to masculine polarity in the integration phase post-orgasm, they will be in complete calmness and presence, as opposed to being that Shakti electromagnetic force that dances and builds up energy, and suddenly there's complete quiet and stillness and beingness and presence, which is masculine, and just observing. And suddenly they're the one actually holding space for the other. And they're the one perhaps being a little bit more detached, which is also more masculine. I think we have questions here. Let me see if I can see questions. No. Okay. So I'm just going to continue. Okay, we are at the integration phase, which is basically integrating all the energies that have been moving through us and receiving all the blessing, all the healing energy, all the codes, all the light, the downloads that wanted to come through that connection. And after this phase comes the aftercare. And this is very important because we've just opened ourselves up so much to being intimate with another person. And there needs to be a grounding of all of that experience into the material world. So the aftercare is a time to take care of each other and to take care of ourselves. So it's like coming down from the mountain of ecstasy and bliss and connecting to the divine, to this physical reality, down into the village where we're actually cooking for each other, we're caring for our physical needs, maybe using the washroom, maybe taking care of whatever is around us. And it's a time to take care also of each other, because Tantra is also a journey to open the heart. And when the heart really opens, there's this natural care that happens. And this is really important. I think that this is really the phase where we get to receive all the blessing from Tantra, from the experience and from the other person, and from having opened ourselves in intimacy. So this is the journey through this energetic lens that I wanted to offer to you today. And I also wanted to invite you to just be present with your intention while connecting to another person, because in order to really come from a whole place, not only you want to balance your feminine and masculine, not only you want to find that inner integrity and wholeness, but you also want to come from a good space. And for that, you really need to have this sense of care and love for the other. And in some esoteric teachings around Mary Magdalene and Jesus, this kind of new path of sacred sexuality that is emerging there is teaching us that this care and love for another is actually what is going to protect you. Because when you're opening so much energetically and exchanging with another person, there can be a lot of things that happen. A lot of my sisters report receiving some darker energies from the other person, being attacked, etc. A lot of trauma can occur in this space too. But if you come from a good place of loving and caring for the other person, you will be protected. This is what is called the Nymphian phase. The Nymphian is created around you, which is another kind of energetic body that becomes created around the two lovers that will actually protect them. So you definitely want to be discerning as to who you connect to and for what reason.